In this video, we are going to discuss a shocking game and a shocking news. So, the first of all, from the start, today we are going to discuss the game from the third round of the Sinquefield Cup 2022, played between the world champion Magnus Carlsen versus Hans-Moke Niemann. And Hans-Moke Niemann, I'm already sure that you must be knowing Hans-Moke Niemann because who have already posted on Twitter that his chess speaks for its own, speaks for itself. And Magnus Carlsen is the world champion, and it is a classical game, 90 minutes plus 30 second increment. And after 40 moves, the player is going to get 40 minutes extra. 40 minutes, or no, sorry, 30 minutes. So yeah, it was the third round, and Magnus Carlsen was playing with the white pieces, and Hans was also playing with the black pieces. And both the players are leading the tournament. As out of 2 rounds, both the players have scored 1.5 to 1.5. So it's going to be a very interesting game. As Magnus Carlsen is playing with the white pieces, so definitely he is the favorite. And Hans is having the rating of 2688. Not so strong compared to the Magnus, but yeah. So Magnus with the white pieces starts out the game with 1d4. And after d4, Hans replied with solid knight f6, c4, e6, knight to c3, allowing black to play the Nimzo Indian. White usually have the option to play knight f3 at the place of knight f3. The reason, this move is much popular compared to the knight c3. The reason is, after knight f3, if bishop tries to give a check on v4, here as you have not committed the knight on c3, you can play bishop to d2, and the line goes like queen e7, g3, as black tries to develop the bishop with b6, bishop b7. So the line goes on, and capturing in this position is not a good move because of queen into d2. White is having the edge. So that is the reason, but Magnus allowed him to play the Nimzo, bishop b4, g3, and perhaps we are going to have some Catalan structure like this. Short castle by black, bishop g2, d5, and a3. a3 is already a bit shocking, I would say, a bit surprised. Like many viewers already got surprised after seeing this move. The difference is, the basic point is, a3 is played, but like very rarely, and it's actually not a good move because of pawn push. You simply take, and the position, black simply captures the c4 pawn, and the position is already equal. So basically, you are having the white pieces, you are the world champion, and you are making the position already drawish in just 6 moves. So it doesn't make any sense. And after d5, you can simply continue with knight f3, and the line simply goes like after d into c4, which is the best move. You can play short castle, knight to c6, a3, and after a3, black is having the 2 options. The best move is to play bishop e7, but for all the normal players, you can simply capture the knight, pawn takes, rook b8, as now no longer the rook is attacked on a8 with this diagonal, and you can play with b5, knight a5, trying to hang on with this pawn. And I think black is having a fine position, but still white is having the edge. But first playing a3, black simply captured it, dc4, knight f3. And after knight f3, black in this position have the option to play c5. And after c5, first of all, if you try to capture the pawn, black can simply trade the queens, and your king is in the center. And I think knight e4 is already a very strong move, hitting these 2 pawns, actually hitting these 3 pawns. And it's going to be already slightly better position for black. So that's the reason you can't capture you really can't capture the pawn on c5. So white simply decides to castle. And actually there is a news that I'm hearing is that Magnus Carlsen is not, nowadays he's not playing a very sharp chess. He's simply he's just playing very casually. He's not playing his best, I would believe. He's not playing the best from start of the opening. He's just making the position equal from the start, and then he's trying to slowly and steadily grind the position and still win. So yeah, short castle, black decides to capture the pawn on d4, and we have queen into d4. In this position, white can still capture this pawn with the pawn, but it's comparatively much bad compared to the queen. The reason is black can continue with knight to c6, and after knight c6, black is a pawn up, and if you want to capture the pawn, you have to waste two moves, like queen c2, queen into c4. Whereas it just simply gives black a huge amount of time, which helps black to simply develop his pieces. For example, if e3, trying to first defend this d4 pawn, queen c7 defends the c5 c4 pawn. I don't know, like black is too comfortable. Black can simply play bishop d7, rook d8, rook c8, finish its development, and I would believe black is at least equal, at least. That is the reason queen to d4 was played in the game. Knight to c6, not trading the queens. Many players in the club level actually go for trading the queens, which is not a good thing, because here I think it's still fine. It's not that bad move, but like after take, I believe white can simply capture the queen, and it's fine position for white. I think even knight into d4 is fine, because it keeps an eye on the b7 pawn, and it also not allows the knight to develop on c6. So, but there is a basic rule. I would say there is an advanced rule. Like whenever you are having the option to trade, you should not go for trading your pieces with him, but you should allow your opponent to capture your pieces. So that, for example, if knight c6, you simply develop the piece at the place of capturing the queen, and if white trades the queen, rook into, and basically the queens have been traded, but in the return you have got the development of two minor pieces, which is phenomenal. That is the reason you should always try to make moves which will force your opponent to capture your pieces at the place of you capturing your opponent pieces. So after knight c6, we have queen into c4, capturing the pawn and making the position equal. Material-wise, I would say. And here, if okay, in this point, I was actually going to ask you, how will you continue the position? Because it's already pretty complicated position. Not a complicated position, but pretty difficult position for a club level player who like, for example, in this position, black is really having no weakness, no actual weakness. Like the pawn structure is simply perfect. But the reason is you can simply develop a queen to c7 or e7. It doesn't matter. But how are you going to develop the bishop? How are you going to finish your development? Because white is having the long-term weaknesses on c3 and e3. But in the exchange, white has got the huge amount of development ideas, like bishop g5, rook is coming on d1. Perhaps on b1 as well, I don't know. You have to make the best move. You have to develop your pieces as soon as possible so that you won't lag behind in development. That is the phenomenal move played by Hans, which is e5. Phenomenal move. Many times club level players do not like to play these moves because it simply destroys their pawn structure like that. So, but it's actually fine because you're developing your bishop. You want to develop your bishop. Bishop g5 was played, h6 by Niemann, hitting the bishop, and rook to d1. And when I was watching the position, I thought that Niemann is going to move the queen, bishop takes, queen takes, and basically white got this rook d1 as a tempo, as like in this position, if it takes rook d1, it's black to move. But if in this position, if rook d1 now, queen e7 takes, it's a white to move, and rook have been already secured on d1. So it's one tempo is everything in chess. But Niemann actually came up with a very good move, which is bishop to e6. Bishop e6 attacks the queen, attacks the bishop, and like he actually after the game told that he have already he actually prepared this till, I don't know, perhaps like chill here definitely, but I think after 2-3 move more. So after bishop b6, we have rook into queen. For example, in this position, if white tries to defend the queen, like try to move this queen, and now black queen is hanging, now black can play queen to a5. Luckily, and like if you trade the queens, takes, and basically it's a positional, material-wise the position is equal, but you can already sense that the a3 and c3 are very soft, and black is very comfortable. Black is even better. So that is the reason rook into queen was played, bishop into queen, rook into rook, rook into rook, bishop into knight, because, and the reason was bishop into knight was played because first of all the bishop was attacked, and second, to make this bad pawn structure of black on the king side. And here king to f1 was played. The reason was quite simple. The e2 was hanging. If you try to play e3, you can play. You can definitely play e3, but the point is now you can no longer try to advance and try to activate your king because the f1 square is simply covered by the bishop. That is the reason king f1 trying to bring the king in the center, as king is also material and you should always try to activate your kings in the endgame. So after king f1, rook d8, activating the rook on the d file, open d file, king e1, knight to a5, taking control of the light squares, weaknesses, developing the knight, rook d1, rook c8, restricting the, not allowing the rook trade. You can go for rook trade, but like the less the pieces, the less you are having the winning chances, and black is already very comfortable in this position. So Hans is looking for a win. Knight to d2 against knight to d2 was played by Magnus, trying to hit the bishop, also trying to put pressure on the b7 pawn, though the pawn is protected by the knight on a5. Bishop e6, Niemann keeping the pieces on the board, and here the c3 pawn is simply attacked. So c4 was played by Niemann, c4 was played by Carlsen. In this position, for example, if Magnus still tries to defend this pawn by playing a rook to c1, defending it like this, now I believe black can simply play f5. And now you can't move the rook because the c3 is hanging, my e4 is coming in, and white is really having no play, to be true. Like if you try to play c4, the pawn is still hanging. Like I can first play e3 and then I can simply capture this pawn because I'm having these 3 pieces. So that's the stuff. Magnus decides to leave that pawn by playing c4, bishop into c4. If knight into c4, then I believe knight into c4, and after bishop into c4, for example, it doesn't matter actually. If rook into c4, bishop into b7, and the position is equal now. But bishop into c4, that's the point. Knight into, rook into. You can't capture with the knight because after bishop into b7, the position is still equal. You have to keep the pawn on b7 alive. That is the reason rook into c4. Rook checking move, bishop to d5, hitting the rook. Rook c7, trying to take control of the 7th file because if black plays something like, I don't know, perhaps this, rook d7 is already a good move by white. Hitting the f7, also hitting the b7, and it's already slightly better. I would say better for white in this position. If you want to be better, you have to play rook c7, cover the 7th rank. Rook a8, a6, rook b8, and here we have f5. Trying to move the center pawns, and here g4 was played by Magnus. Like if you take steadily, rook into e4, and slowly and steadily Magnus is trying to draw the game. But Niemann first played rook to c5, hitting the bishop move, knight to c4, a good move by Niemann, a very good move. a4 was played as the pawn was simply attacked on e3. If you try to capture the knight in this position and try to go in the rook endgame, hoping that it's a draw, but guys, after g to f5, black can simply play b5, and after b5, black is going to play rook a4, capturing the a3 pawn, and you can't really defend the a3 pawn. Black would be having 2 pawns on the queen side, pass pawn, which is good enough to win the game. For example, king d2, rook a4, h4 takes, rook takes. Like material wise, black is having the 4 pawns, so white is also having the 4 pawns, but black is having the 2 pass pawns on the queen side, which is good enough to win the game. That is the reason e4 was played. Now knight to d6, hitting the rook, and now black is already preparing to capture the pawn as the e4 pawn is protected by the knight. Rook to d7, rook to e7 was played. F into g4 in this position, and yeah, the reason rook e7 was played because to try to put pressure on this f7 and the b7 pawn. And after f into g4, actually a much better move in this position could have been simply rook to c2. The reason is bishop b3, rook c3, bishop goes back, and now you capture. And the reason is you basically got this free move of activating your rook on the third rank. But like, although it's still winning, like after f into g4, you're not 2 pawn up. So rook to d7 was played, and now e3 by Hans. Fantastic move, I would say. Like, you can't capture the knight because of check. Rook comes and pawn takes. You have to take and you lose the rook and the game is over. So fantastic move, I would say. Magnus was forced to capture the pawn, knight to e4, and again threatening this checkmating idea, though rook is coming in between. But Magnus trying to run away with the king. Rook check, king move, rook to c2, hitting the pawn and the bishop. Bishop into pawn, rook into check, king here, check, check. Basically, every square is covered. If you try to play king f1, now rook f2, and you lose the bishop, so you cannot go for it. So basically, Carlsen was forced to take a draw. But now it's a choice of Niemann that you want to take a draw or not. Definitely, he's not going to take a draw because he's having much more activated pieces. He's a pawn up. He's having the knight versus bishop, and usually in the knight versus bishop, I actually prefer the knight, as the knight can move in all the 64 squares, and white bishop can only move in the 32 squares. Bishop d5, hitting the knight and the pawn. Rook to g2, a good move now, and now the pieces are really going to be traded because, like, you have to trade the rooks or the bishop. You have to trade the rook, or you are going to trade everything, and the position is winning for black. So rook check was given because, like, you can't capture because the rook is hanging. So rook check was played, king g6, and the reason is, the point is, now the bishop is also attacked, the rook is also attacked. So the rook to d7 was again played, knight g5, because Magnus was fine with the draw. Knight g5, bishop check, because in this position the black idea is to simply bring the king and trade the pieces. So bishop check was played, and king f5. You can't capture because you lose the rook. And now white is the one who is winning. So king f5, and the point here is either you have to capture the rook, like if it's a no move, you have to trade one pair of minor pieces. Like, you can't keep both. So rook into rook was played because it's kind of forced, and now knight f3 check. It's a check, you win the rook, and now it's winning for black. Black is simply a nice pawn up, knight versus bishop. It's good enough to win. A couple of moves were played. He didn't win for capturing the pawn because of knight into h2 check. And if you try to go like here, knight f1 takes, and king is too slow. Black is simply going to capture this pawn for free and convert this into a win. So king f2 was played, takes, e4, hoping to trap the knight somewhere, but nothing is happening. So a couple of moves were played. White captured the pawns on the queen side, but black is having too many pawns on the king side to win the game. So after king e5, on the move number 57, after playing king e5, Magnus Carlsen with the white pieces decides to resign the game. And after the game is over, in the fourth round, Magnus didn't show up against Shakriya Mamedyarov, and he simply withdrew the tournament. And he didn't tell the reason why he withdrew from the tournament, but Hans told that perhaps he's got demotivated as he simply lost against Hans. Like, Like, he's comparatively much lower rate compared to Magnus. He's not even 2700 yet. Though after beating Magnus, he crossed 2700. And the shocking part is, first of all, Neiman won against Magnus with the black pieces. Second, he have already tweeted that his chess speaks for itself, which is the shocking news, I would say. And third, he have crossed 2700 rating, which is fantastic, which is unbelievable, and very congratulations to Hans. But after beating Magnus Carlsen, there were many rumors that is going on saying that Hans cheated. But guys, I don't believe Hans cheated, because before playing the game, there are arbiters who are checking for any metal detector or anything, any electronic devices from which can be used to cheat, but like nothing was found. So basically, the players are not going to actually cheat, because Sinquefield Cup is a very big tournament. Only limited players, like perhaps 8 or 10 players, is allowed to play the tournament, and like it's one of the biggest tournaments, so they actually can't really cheat. So that's the stuff, guys. So I think it was a fantastic game played by Hans Niemann with the black pieces against Magnus Carlsen. So if you like the analysis, then make sure to like the video. If you are new to my channel, then make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'm going to come up with these interesting recaps. So till then, stay tuned and keep watching One Shot Chess.